Hi there, this is Ranjit, and in this video we'll be doing a comparison between the Xiaomi Mi A2 and the RealMe 2 Pro, as both of these smartphones are running on the Snapdragon 660 SoC, and many of you have asked me to do a practical comparison. And guys, I've already posted FAQ videos on both these smartphones, so if you want to know more details about these smartphones, you can check out those videos. I'll leave them in the YouTube description area. But here we'll be doing a 10-point practical comparison between these two phones, and yes, I will also be doing a camera comparison. I've taken a lot of sample shot side by side with both these devices in varying light conditions, and I'll show you the samples so that you can check which one is doing a better job. And yes, I even took samples with the front facing camera. So let's get on with the comparison. And first, and again, in terms of day-to-day performance, guys, both these smartphones are actually really good. It's running on the Snapdragon 660 SoC, which is a very powerful chipset. So in general day-to-day performance, I haven't noticed any issues with these two phones, no lag or whatsoever. But again, the Mi A2 is an Android One device. But let's start the comparison, and let's first talk with the screen. Both of them are actually look pretty modern, but this RealMe 2 Pro is having that drop design, and because of that they could fit a larger screen. As you can see side by side, both are almost similar in size, but they are able to manage to put a 6.3-inch screen on this RealMe 2 Pro, whereas this Mi A2, because the bezels are thick at the top and bottom, it just has a 5.99-inch screen. That's almost a 6-inch screen. And also moving to screen tech, technology used on both are sort of IPS LCD screen. This is a normal IPS LCD screen, and the PPI actually comes down to about 403, whereas as the slightly larger 6.3-inch, but this is LTPS IPS grade screen. Hence, due to that, it's a very power efficient screen, and I think so that is the reason this actually gets very good battery life. And also, as it's a slightly bigger screen, 6.3 inches, it's also actually slightly higher in resolution. And in fact, if we convert it to PPI, it comes to 409 PPI on this compared to 403. But again, screen quality, both of them are actually good, no issues, guys. But one thing that I am actually annoyed with this Mi A2, and I even mentioned in the FAQ video when I posted, is both of them are actually modern phones, have all the sensors, auto brightness, everything. But auto brightness calibration on this one is simply not that good. And often I have to actually disable the auto brightness and keep it on manual brightness, because it just goes crazy. As you can see, even on the camera, it will just go crazy. That's not the case on this one. I could just leave it on auto brightness and use this phone. So that is one thing you have to note in practical day usage. That's actually really important. And many of the users, even I checked on Amazon reviews, were complaining about the auto brightness sensor on this one. It just goes crazy. Now moving to speakers, both of them are having single speakers here at the bottom, and both are actually adequately loud. But in terms of loudness, if I have to pick one, definitely the RealMe 2 Pro goes slightly louder and fuller than this one. In fact, I would say in this price range, though it's just having a single speaker, this one is the loudest. Now moving to build quality and design, here I give the slight edge to the Mi A2 because it's having that metallic back build quality, and also at the sides it's slightly tapered, so I feel it fits slightly better in the hand. I feel it's slightly I have a preference towards metal, guys. That's the only reason I would say. Whereas on this one, it's not bad, but it's sort of polycarbonate thing that you're getting on this one, and also it's shiny, prone to fingerprint scanner. Again, this will come down to personal preference. But again, in terms of bezels, as you can clearly see, this one actually has very thick bezels both at top and the bottom, whereas the bezels are actually very thin on this one. Fortunately, both of these smartphones are having a fingerprint scanner at the back, and even face unlocking is there even on this one. And I'm happy to say that the fingerprint scanner is actually really good on both, so no, I'm neutral about that. This is the Mi A2, as you can see, the fingerprint scanner, and it works almost every time. That's the same case even with this RealMe 2 Pro. As you can see, the fingerprint scanner works every time. And yeah, both of them do even have face unlocking if you want. Now, before we move ahead, one thing I really did not like on this Mi A2 is that they have omitted this headphone jack completely on this phone. And I don't know why they did it, because when I reviewed the Mi A1 last year, I applauded Xiaomi for having one of the best 3.5mm headphone jack output. But now we simply do not have that, and you have to rely on dongles. And if you're a person like me who listens to a lot of music with headphones and stuff, you know the importance of 3.5mm headphone jack. It is simply very practical, but they have removed this. Fortunately, we still have a proper headphone jack on this Realme 2 Pro. So if you like the Realme, if you like the headphone jack like me personally, you will pick this one. So that's again one more thing that is practical that I thought should be brought about. Now moving to another thing, and here the Mi A2 goes ahead, is that yes, both of these smartphones have all the sensors, auto brightness, gyroscope, all those things, but this Mi A2 has one extra thing that is known as the IR blaster, using which you can control devices like television, air conditioner. We simply don't have that on this Realme 2 Pro. So that is one thing you have to note. Another place where I feel obviously, as it's Android One device, the Mi A2 goes ahead is that because it's an Android One device, it's stock Android experience that you are getting. So pure Google Android experience that you are getting. So if you like that, you will really like that. And because of that, as it's Android One device, this device definitely gets the updates quickly, and it's also getting those monthly security updates, and the Android P update will also be soon rolled out on this. Whereas on this Realme 2 Pro, it's using a custom skin that is known as ColorOS, which is used by most Oppo phones, and we don't even have an app tray by default. It's not like the UI is sluggish or anything. I haven't noticed any sluggishness, but again, it's not stock Android that you're getting. So that is again one more thing that you have to note. So, and definitely in terms of software updates, the Mi A2 will go ahead. Now moving to another thing is let's also talk about the pricing and the variants available between these two. The Mi A2 in India is available only in one variant that is priced at 17,000, and we are getting the 4GB RAM variant and 64GB of internal storage with this one. Whereas with the Realme 2 Pro, we actually have three different variants. The base variant is selling for 14,000, and that you'll get 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. It's almost comparable to this one, I would say. But as you can see, there's a price gap of 3,000 rupees between these two. Whereas on Realme, we also have other options like 6GB of RAM and 8GB of RAM. 6GB of RAM is 16,000 if I recall, and the 8GB RAM that model that comes with 128GB of storage is for 18,000. So you certainly have more choices in the variants with the Realme 2 Pro. But again, if you take just the price into comparison, yes, there is a price gap of 3,000 rupees more with this Mi A2. And now let's talk about another very practical thing is the battery life. I don't know why again Xiaomi did this thing with the Mi A2. It's having a 3000 milliamp hour battery, and don't get me wrong, the battery life is not terrible on this because it's running on the Snapdragon 660 SoC, which is a very power efficient processor. But again, in my testing, I would say with a regular day, it was lasting me for a full typical day. At night, I had to charge. But again, if you're sort of a very heavy user, one day you have to use a lot of GPS, you're busy, then yes, by the end of the day, I had to put this one on charge. But the good thing is that we do get fast charging support on the Mi A2, which is not present on the Realme 2 Pro. But now let's talk about the battery life. So I would say it's a okay battery life for a regular user. If you're sort of a heavy user, then yes, you might have to top this up in the evenings. Now let's move to the Realme 2 Pro, and I've used this one also for about 9 days with my primary SIM. And definitely I would say the battery life on this is much better compared to the Mi A2, and I think so that is also due to the type of panel that they have used. Initially, as I mentioned, they were using the LTPS IPS panel, which is actually very power efficient. This is actually more expensive than regular IPS panel, but the good thing is that it consumes a very less power, and though it's just having a 3500 milliamp hour battery, I would say the battery life is significantly better on this one. It could easily last me for a typical full day. Even with heavy usage, I didn't have to worry. And so even if you're sort of a heavy user, it'll last you for a full typical working day. And if you're sort of a casual user, it'll last you for about 1.5 days. So definitely in terms of battery life, this one will go ahead. But again, remember, this one doesn't have fast charging. Now moving to another thing that is actually very critical these days with this phone is the camera performance. So how is the camera performance between these two phones? I've actually taken a lot of sample shots side by side. So here are the samples so that you can have a look at the same. On the left we have the Realme 2 Pro and on the right we have the Xiaomi Mi A2, and notice the color difference between both the devices. The Mi A2 has certain warm tone, and again, as you can see, this was a very difficult shot, and both the devices actually did an incredible job because of the backlighting. So here I would say I was impressed with both, but this is a very close-up macro shot, and here the Realme 2 Pro does way better in macro shots. Notice that background blur, and I tried it multiple times. The Realme 2 Pro did better than the Xiaomi Mi A2. It's not like the Mi A2 couldn't get macro shots, but if the subject is big, as you can see, it could easily take the shot. But if it's a very small subject, the Realme 2 in close-up shots did better. This is in indoor sort of lighting, and again here this is my office setting. Both are equal here, but when we make the light very dim, I feel the Mi A2 is doing slightly better, as you can see from these sample shots. In this sample, both are close to each other, so I decided to zoom it up 75%. And here again, as you can see, the Mi A2 is slightly better compared to the Realme 2 Pro. Now moving to some pic shot in indoor conditions. Here, as you can see, the Realme 2 Pro is producing slightly better colors, and here as you can see I've zoomed up 50%, and definitely I like the colors more of the Realme 2 compared to the Mi A2. Both have portrait mode, and I feel the portrait mode is very aggressive on the Realme 2 Pro. Notice my face again. Here I have zoomed up. It has added that beauty effect even though I have disabled it. Maybe some people would like it, but yeah, it is adding the skin smoothing in the portrait mode. Now pics with the front facing camera and the Xiaomi Mi 2 contrast. Notice the face is just too much in my frank opinion. Here is one more sample shots, as you can see, and you notice the color difference between the cameras between the two, and both of them actually have a portrait mode. And as you can see in portrait mode, Mi A2 is doing far better than the normal mode, as you can see from these sample shots, and the Realme 2 Pro also in the portrait mode is doing actually a pretty good job. So guys, as you have seen this camera samples, let's break it down. Let's first talk about the front facing camera. And for the front facing camera, I would say I preferred the pictures with the Mi A2 in the regular mode with the front facing camera, because I don't know why, though it's having a higher megapixel count, 20 megapixel versus a 16 megapixel front facing camera, the images in the regular mode were very contrasty. You notice that my face was a lot more darker on this one compared to this one. So in regular shots with the front facing camera, I would give the slight pick to this one. But when we move to the portrait mode, the contrast stuff was improved even on the Mi A2. So when you enable the portrait mode with the front facing camera, both are sort of neutral in my opinion. But now let's move to the rear facing camera, which is actually very important. Definitely in terms of close-up macro shots, I would say this Realme 2 Pro did better than this one, as I've shown you the sample shots earlier. But in very low lighting conditions, this Mi A2 was doing slightly better compared to this one. They were very close, but yeah, in very low lighting conditions, if I have to pick one, the Mi A2 went ahead. In regular shots that we take day to day with human subjects, for some reasons, the colors, when you notice my face, etc., the colors were actually better with the Realme 2. So again, that's a personal preference, but I felt the colors on the skin tones that we say looked better with the Realme 2. But when we enable the portrait mode, this one, the Realme 2 Pro, even when I disabled all the beauty options, it was smoothing up the skin, which I personally didn't like. So maybe if you use the portrait mode a lot, then this Mi A2 might be a better bet. So again, very close in camera performance. One goes ahead in one area, one in another. So I wouldn't say it's a drastic difference that I saw. So overall, I would say if I have to sum up, if the pricing of these two phones were equal, then they are very close to each other, and maybe the Mi A2 might go ahead because it's stock Android experience. But as the pricing is not close, one is 14,000, one is 17,000. There is a price gap. I would say the Realme 2 Pro goes slightly ahead because of these specific reasons, in my frank opinion. Battery life, definitely this one was better. Also, it does have that 3.5mm headphone jack, which might be very important, and it's a practical thing that you can use. You can use any cheap headset, plug it, and you're going somewhere, you can use that on a bike. I've seen many people do that. This you have to buy separately a Bluetooth headset or something like that. Also, in terms of bezels, yeah, definitely. Again, this is not a big deal. Personal opinion, I would say bezels are a lot thinner on this one because of that water drop design that they have given. And the camera, as I've mentioned, in terms of skin tones, I like the skin tones slightly better on this, but yeah, portrait mode, this one was doing better. And lastly, it comes down to the pricing gap, 3,000 rupees between the base variants of these two phones, 14,000 and 17,000. So overall, if you take into account all these things, I would say the Realme 2 Pro actually makes practically more sense. But again, if you want faster updates, definitely the Mi A2 will get that because it's Android One device. So anyways, guys, this was a quick comparison between these two smartphones. If you guys still have any other questions regarding these two devices, do post your questions in the YouTube comment section below and I'll be happy to answer them. And that's it for now, guys. And if you're still not subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. This is Ranjit and I hope to see you in my next video. Take care, guys.